Hi everybody, and welcome to Deconstructing Unschooling. I'm Amy Milstein, and this week we're going to talk about how do you know if your kids are learning? This is something that people ask me when I tell them that we unschool, and I explain that it means we learn through our life and we don't use a curriculum and we don't have set lessons. And they always kind of think, but how do you know that they're learning? And when they say this to me, I know that what they're thinking is in terms of school, because how do I know that they're learning is kind of a silly question, because people learn every day all the time. It's not something you can shut off. So when people say, well, how do you know they're learning? I know that they're thinking of that question like, how do you know they're learning what they need to know? And when you use the phrase need to know, it's always in relation to for school, because learning what you need to know is very relative to each person. Need implies an imperative. We need food or we die. So you need to know things because they're imperative to you, or because you have a specific goal, and to get there you need to learn certain things. Or you have a specific job and you need to have certain skills to do that job. So when someone says what kids need to know, they can only be speaking really in relation to a school setting where every kid is supposed to know the same thing at the same age, which is really artificial. It's not naturally the way we learn. It's not the way things work. I have this book here, What Your Kindergartner Needs to Know. And I used to actually own this book when I was, when my daughter was really little, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do for her learning. And I picked up this book. Now, this book is edited by E.D. Hirsch, whose name meant nothing to me at the time, but I've since sort of discovered that he's the head of the Core Knowledge. Actually, this is the Core Knowledge series. And he's a big proponent of the Common Core standards as well, because he believes that people, the ever elusive they, ought to set this list of facts, because that's basically all this stuff is. It's a huge list of facts, and these facts include stories, and they include facts about history, and they include facts about numbers and math. And he believes that these facts must be forced on kids at a certain age, and they must learn all of these facts before they can do well on the slew of standardized tests that they're going to have, or before they can move on to the next grade, where they get to learn the next jumble of facts. Well, facts, make you good at Trivial Pursuit, but I don't really equate the accumulation of facts that you can regurgitate as learning, as knowledge. Learning is much more complicated than that. It's much more individual. Each person's learning will be different. And so, as you might guess, I'm really kind of opposed to the idea that kids need to know certain things at a certain age. And the sooner that we can sort of recognize this and refuse to participate in this tape recorder learning, which is something that a teacher of mine once told me, and I'm going to get to that in a second, the better off everyone will be. And unschoolers have recognized this. So I send kudos to all of you who are following this path, because you've recognized that just sitting there and force-feeding your kid all of this facts and information and calling it learning and knowledge is not really accurate. And for those of you who are curious about it, I applaud you for checking into it and looking at this video, and I hope that something I say here will spark an interest or have you look a little further. So I want to tell you two quick stories about facts. One is from my 4th grade year in school, in public school, when there was far less testing and no Common Core standards as such. My teacher, I think we studied like Indiana history, but there was some US history or something thrown in. But my teacher, and this is the one thing, by the way, that I really remember about that year of learning. My teacher said at one point that the United States flag was the most beautiful flag of any country in the world. And she said it as a statement of fact. She didn't say, it's my opinion that the United States flag, or I believe that the flag is the most beautiful. She also didn't say, I think that because we live in the United States, we should be proud and we should feel that our flag is the most beautiful. That's not what she said. She said it as a statement of fact. Our flag is the most beautiful flag of any country in the world. And so in my 10-year-old head, I thought that there was some sort of international flag judging committee, and that they had judged all the flags, and the United States won most beautiful flag competition. And I truly believed that, and I thought that for years, until I went to Europe when I was in my teens and heard someone there talking about their country's flag and how they thought it was the most beautiful flag in the world. And literally the first thought that went through my head was, they must not know. They didn't get the memo that the United States flag won the most beautiful flag in the world competition. And then there was like a couple of beats later, I thought, I'm so glad I didn't say that, by the way. Then a couple of beats later, I thought, wait a minute, that was just my teacher's opinion. There's no international flag judging committee. But because it had been presented to me as a fact, and I was a good student who thought that anything my teacher said must be true, it took me years to figure out that that was just her opinion presented as a fact. That's one thing about facts. They can be misinterpreted. Or sometimes they're not even facts, they are opinion presented as facts. And I'm not saying all teachers do this. Okay, the other thing about facts is, and this has to do with the tape recorder learning I mentioned earlier. When I was a senior in high school, possibly my favorite teacher of all time was James Worley. He taught senior English, and the first day in our first class, he walked in and he said, 95% of everything you have learned in school to this point is garbage. And as you might imagine, that got everybody's attention because we were seniors. We were in our last year of this garbage collecting that he said we'd been doing. And he said, all you've been learning to do is what tape recorders can do. You come in, you hit record, and I hit play, and I give you all of the information I think you should know. And then at test time, we come in, I hit record and you hit play, and you just regurgitate it all back to me. He said, I'm not going to do that. If we're going to do that, we might as well just bring in our tape recorders and we can go out and do something fun like play tennis. And this was a real eye-opener for me because it was absolutely 100% true. So those are two little stories about facts. Both have set in the public school with teachers, but kind of on opposite ends of the spectrum. So pulling this all back into the realm of unschooling, where we don't use a curriculum, and our goal is not simply to fill our kids' heads with facts. Our goal is to encourage them to pursue their interests, and through those interests, to pursue various types of thinking and doing and experiencing the world and gaining a really full knowledge of the things they do, not an artificial one that's put on them by someone else or by someone else's standards of what they think is important. When I think about learning, this book here, this what your kindergartner needs to know, this is not just about what E.D. Hirsch thinks kids need to know, but when he believes they need to know it. And I would say that a much more important element in learning is how. In other words, if my kids know how to learn what they need to know, and if they come up against a problem in something they're doing and they know where to go, they know where to look, what books to look for, where to go online, or what person to ask to help them through this problem, to finding the solution or getting the answers they need to pursue whatever they're doing, that is far more important than some random set of facts or equations that someone else thinks is important. So it's easy as unschoolers to kind of get caught up in, what is your kid learning right now? Even in the homeschool community, sometimes I would be at a playground and parents would be discussing what curriculum they're using, and someone would say, oh, my 8-year-old is so fascinated by the Ming Dynasty. We're just getting books and doing everything. And I'd get home and think, wow, I don't know anything about the Ming Dynasty. Oh my God, we've totally missed the Ming Dynasty. It's really easy to get caught up in that. I think I'm not mistaken in saying that it's okay if your 8-year-old doesn't love the Ming Dynasty. One other thing I'll say is that just because you're not interested in something in school in the 9th grade, when you're supposed to learn algebra, for instance, algebra, that holy grail of learning that people toss out anytime you're talking about unschooling. What about algebra? As though somehow that's the key to life. You might not be interested in algebra. As a kid, I certainly wasn't. I still am not. But your interests change as you get older a lot of times. Thank goodness I'm not still interested only in the things I was interested in at 18. I would have a very strange life if that were the case. So interests change. Learning is valid at any age. If you learn algebra at the age of 30, that's no less valid than learning it at the age of 14. It might even be more valid because you're probably learning it because you want to, for whatever reason, not because someone told you you should. So how do we know they're learning? We know they're learning because that's the natural state of humankind, is curiosity and learning. So that's it for today, except I have to send my shout out this week. Scissors. Scissors is the object. Now, scissors were apparently invented in Mesopotamia some thousands of years ago, but they weren't the kind of scissors we use. There was some sort of metal thing and it curved around, and I'm not really sure how it worked. So the modern scissors that we think of that cross over and have a little thing in the middle were invented by none other than Leonardo da Vinci. So thank you, Leonardo da Vinci. Without you, I would not have had a haircut this week, because prior to this I was beginning to resemble a little bit Cousin It from the Addams Family. So I'm very happy to be able to see the camera once again. So thank you, Da Vinci. Thanks, everybody. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.